MPs, including Sarah Cox, Ken Bruce, Simon Mayo and Tony Blackburn, have all been posted online this evening. Jo Whiley said on her show tonight he was the soundtrack to our lives. And BBC radio presenter Gary Davies said tonight he's absolutely shocked and devastated, adding, "We've lost a broadcasting giant." Steve Wright, who died yesterday at the age of 69. For the very latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts, scanning the QR code on your screen, or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Josh Howie, and joining me to pretend to have read tomorrow's newspapers whilst whittling on about meeting calendars is Paul Cox and Lewis Schaefer.
So unfair, Josh.
No, it's not. We know where the issues are, where the importance is.
Good news.
It's good news.
Yeah, it's meat and calendars.
Yeah,
let's see if we can relate every story somehow back
We will
to those
try our best.
It's not hard to do that.
No, it's not for you. How are you doing, Paul? You all right?
I'm good, thanks, Josh.
Yeah.
We've not worked together for a few weeks now.
I've been away. I've been
missed you.
Filming for an American TV series, for a character I based on Lewis Schaefer, actually. But it's like Lewis, they would have hired you, but they needed someone bald. I'm afraid.
Bald?
Yeah, you wouldn't even do that for work, would you?
You know what? I couldn't risk shaving my head for it. No.
No, exactly. That beautiful wig you have on. Right, let's have a quick little peek at those front pages. We have the Daily Mail. Row over Harry's royal website rebrand. Telegraph, Labour faces fresh crisis over anti-Israel remarks. Guardian, Labour in turmoil as party ditches second candidate over Israel views. Express, what on earth is Britain coming to? The I tunes. So it's like I tunes. Starmer fights to limit damage after second candidate rants about Israel. And finally, the Daily Star, BBC DJ legend Steve Wright dead at 69. I'm sorry that I went into that link. So happy. It's a sad one. And those were your front pages. Paul, let's start with the Express.
We shall. When a bullying pro-Palestine mob can frighten MP Tobias Ellwood's family by besieging his home and accusing the senior Tory of being a war criminal with the police present, aren't we entitled to ask, what on earth is Britain coming to?
That's a long headline there.
It is, and I needed to, because if I just read
it was so dramatic.
It was. I got a B in GCSE drama, Josh. I don't want to brag. The former Middle East minister and his two sons inside. There's up to 100 angry protesters accused him of war crimes for backing Israel. So it's a pertinent question. What is Britain coming to, Josh? And this, for a lot of us here, creates quite the conundrum, because we're all free speech advocates, and we are all very happy for people to air their views and for those views to be heard. But where is the line drawn? And I would say when it comes to family safety, for sure. You know,
but there is no indication that the safety of his children were impaired.
However, if you and I were in a house with our children and there are 100 people stood outside chanting that we were war criminals again, then we would be feeling quite intimidated by that. So it's difficult. I wouldn't want to say they shouldn't or can't do that, but at the end of the day, this is quite intimidating behaviour, and it seems to now be the modus operandi of these people.
Yes, I mean, as Paul says, Lewis, we have two sets of rights here. We've got the rights of our politicians and their families to live life without being intimidated, and we also, of course, have the rights of the cranks.
Well, you could call them cranks. Is it illegal for them to protest in front of some guy's house? It isn't illegal. So, I mean, is it nice? You know, you're a politician. This is the stuff that's going to happen when you're a politician. You stick your head above the parapet and somebody's going to...
But what good is it going to do? Like this guy who's not even the MP for the Middle East. What impact do they think that they're having? They're really there to intimidate, sure.
I think it's having an impact on the people. I think eventually the people of this country are going to sue for peace. They're going to say, all right, you can have... You know, we won't support it.
Yeah, but the problem is it's 3,000 miles away, and the Israeli government are not going to be listening.
Sue for peace with these people.
Could you be more specific?
With
these
the people who support Palestine, freedom and...
Oh, you think we're just going to sort of go, fine, you guys just do whatever you want to do?
I haven't lived in this country long enough. I don't know
Too
the
long,
will...
too long, arguably.
23 years. I don't know the will of the... You know what it is? I don't know the will of the British people. Are they willing to...
Put up with this? Well, I don't think that they are much longer, and when it infringes on people's rights, certainly, as Paul says, their families. And the irony is, of course, that this MP, Tobias Ellwood, he's criticised Netanyahu. Right. He's criticised the Israeli army response. So if they're even going after people who are criticised, and it is possible to criticise Israel without being anti-Semitic, it's totally possible, but I mean, this is crazy.
Ask Paul. Paul's...
Well, I am the Gentile on the panel tonight.
Yeah. All right, well, then your opinion doesn't matter. Let's move on to Wednesday's Guardian, Lewis.
No, it makes it seem like you're just cutting him off.
No, it's all planned. Lewis, do the Guardian.
Go. Guardian.
This is another one of those good news stories. Good news! Labour in turmoil's party ditches a second candidate over Israel views. And maybe the country is standing up for this, but the first guy was this Asar Ali in Rochdale, and he said something that was quite anti-Israel.
Well, it was more than anti-Israel. It was arguably anti-Semitic in that they're basically saying, Jews were complicit in our own rape and murder.
Yes.
Just to try and get land back that we gave away 20 years ago. That Israelis
so that
gave away.
was something. But the new guy, his name is Graham Jones, and he's from
Don't worry about it.
Hyndburn. I don't even know where that is.
It's in Lancashire near Blackburn.
Okay. How many holes in blank?
Well, the Beatles did ask, but I don't know what the answer were. 4,000.
He basically said, what he said was, I'm sure when the world leaders go home like me, pardon my French, they say, F in Israel again. And the truth is, I didn't find that. Maybe Josh can tell me, because Josh has missed it.
But that's not the reason why. He's basically also claiming falsely that it's illegal if you have dual nationality to fight for the Israeli army, which is totally fine. They're an ally.
Yes,
it's not like going and fighting for ISIS.
Yes, so that's the second point. I don't like what he said, but I say it all the time. I look at Israel and I go, holy...
Remember, by the way, this is back in October, I believe, even before the ground offensive began.
But they're getting rid of him now. So,
well, this is the thing. So, right, Paul.
There's a couple of things.
There's a few things. I just want to say, leading you into it, is does Labour still have an anti-Semitism problem?
Well, like Forrest Gump famously said, Labour and anti-Semitism go together like peas and carrots.
I don't know if that was the full quote.
I think no, they in the actual film they cut some of that.
They cut the Labour bit.
But it does appear that way. Now, the counter-argument to that is you'll have to define anti-Semitism, because people do like to redefine anti-Semitism every day of the week so that they're not anti-Semitic in some way. But what we've got here is a guy who feels emboldened to say these things, like the guy in Rochdale did, and he sees...
Well, it was at the same meeting.
Yeah, exactly.
In front of a bunch of Labour supporters.
They quite clearly see a profitability in sharing these views because of the demographic that they're speaking to. This is in Lancashire. This is Blackburn. There's a high Muslim population there. They know...
Although one of these gentlemen is not Muslim.
It doesn't matter, does it? He wants Muslims to vote for him. Now, this isn't... I'm not saying this isn't a Muslim problem. I'm saying that sometimes politicians can get carried away by trying to win votes. They see a profitability in saying things perhaps they don't even mean, but they say it to garner support. And I think in certain demographics, that sort of view will be wholly accepted and win a vote.
But also that this is what they believe. At the same time, there is a positive view, Lewis, that this is Labour actually trying to deal with it. I mean, I know that there was this sort of 48-hour period over the weekend where they obfuscated when it came to Asar Ali, but it seems like this time they're like, right, this guy said something, he's wrong. Also, it shows that maybe they need to improve their vetting process.
Well, this is something that's definitely coming out in the last couple of days. And I think even Labour insiders have sort of said off the record that this has been a bit of a car crash and that they perhaps need to be vetting better.
I don't. You know what? I don't know. I'm not like you, Josh.
No.
I'm not
like anybody, Lewis.
Thank you. Is that I don't think necessarily there's an anti-Semitism problem with with Labour. What I think is Labour is on Team World. Team World hates nation states. They're for a unified people that unites everybody. So, of course, they're going to hate it.
All right, let's end by your calendar. Right, we're obliged to list the other candidates standing in the Rochdale by-election. We have Azar Ali, now he's independent, Mark Coleman, independent, Simon Danjuk, Reform UK, Ian Donaldson, Liberal Democrat, Paul Ellison, Conservative, George Galloway, Workers' Party of Britain, Michael Howarth, independent, William Howarth, they related, independent, Guy Otten, Green Party, Raven, Rodent, Subordna, Official Monster, Raving Luna, Looney Party, David Tully, independent. Woo! What's on the front page of the Telegraph, Paul?
Ministers snap up 16,000 rentals for asylum seekers despite housing woes. So landlords have been offered a 5-year guaranteed full rent deal in a bid to cut the £8 million a day cost of housing migrants in hotel. So, of course, this isn't going to upset anyone, is it? I mean, what do you say about this anymore? You know,
I don't know, but that's why I've come.
Well, exactly, and you know, I feel like I'm on repeat here. We have an immigration issue. It's got nothing to do with where they come from, what their cultural background is, what the colour of their skin is. It's about maths.
For your mind, it does.
It's about for me. Yeah, I'm the People's Gammon. But at the end of the day, it's about maths, isn't it? Only a certain amount of jelly beans can go in the bowl.
I can't believe you're calling them jelly beans.
And, you know,
so racist. It's insane.
They have white jelly beans.
They do. There's every colour of jelly bean. That's why I use jelly beans. There's only a certain amount of jelly beans that can go into the bowl, and now we haven't got a bowl big enough for all the jelly beans, Josh. And
OK, I mean, you're angering Lewis here with your sweet analogy here. Lewis, few issues here. Number one is, it seems like the government is damned if it does, damned if it doesn't. They get complaints because they're spending all these many millions on hotels, but now they're spending many millions on private properties.
It isn't the millions. It isn't how much money is being spent in this issue. Obviously, it's a big issue. The fact is that there's 16,000 homes that the government has bought. I know, because I'm involved with housing issues in Southwark, and I know the people want housing, and they think to themselves, well, if the government can get 16,000 like that, maybe they can get my family a house. So that's a part of contention.
Yeah.
What underlines this all, and this is Louis Schaefer's point, that they just want to build buildings. This is their way of taking 16,000 housing units off.
Let me say that they may want to build buildings. I would argue the problem is they haven't built any buildings.
They have. There's a huge building thing across the country.
Not enough. Right. Thank you, Louis Schaefer, referring to yourself.
Well, it's not enough if they let 1 million people in every year, and there's hundreds of thousands of divorces.
Yeah, and when homeless people can't now get housing. Anyway, right, that's front pages. Thoroughly decimated. Join us in a moment as Rishi jets to GBNews and Russia wins a yacht race. See you in 2.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Chris, what is the preferred way in which the police go about their business at the moment? There's these two strands of thinking: evidence-based policing versus bobbies on the beat.
It's very, very difficult. The problem that police have got, basically, is that they're too thinly spread, and it's too much is expected of them. There's a long list, isn't it? Every month we hear police need to do more about this, police need to do more about that, and police do their best. They're overwhelmed with bureaucracy. I mean, when I was a young PC, if I took a shoplifter in, then I'd be in and out within an hour. You take a shoplifter in now, and you're doomed for the rest of your shift for 6 or 7 hours dealing with the bureaucracy. Police want to get back in those communities because community policing is really the core of policing. But such are the demands on their time at the moment and the bureaucracy and the fact that they are struggling now to retain experienced officers. People are hemorrhaging out of the police, and new recruits coming in haven't got that experience, and there's a good chance they may not stay anyway. So there's all sorts of problems. And for the Home Secretary to glibly say he wants more done, frankly, clearly shows he's got no understanding of the pressure police are under, and of course the constant criticism that they face across the board. Very rarely do you actually hear of police officers getting praised for acts of bravery or acts of compassion. So there's a problem with morale in the police force, and clearly a problem with the Home Secretary, who needs to get out there and talk to officers on the front line who frankly are struggling. And last night, of course, was a graphic example.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Josh Howie, the People's Smoked Salmon. I'm joined by Paul Cox, the People's Gammon, and Lewis Schaefer, the People's Vegetable. The Daily Mail next. What did the CIA...
I don't want to be the People's Vegetable.
Yeah, you are the People's Vegetable. No. And what... OK,
because
fine.
people like vegetables, unfortunately.
Well, they like you as well. OK.
Anyway,
right.
Good news.
What
good
do
news.
the CIA, Mossad, Qatar, Egypt all have in common apart from having Lewis Schaefer as a double agent?
They all, according to the Daily Mail, they all want to discuss truce in Gaza ahead of the Israeli defensive in Rafah. So basically, Egypt and Qatar and the CIA are basically giving kind of the go-ahead to Israel. Nobody likes the
So that's kind of the opposite of the story, isn't it? That they're trying to create a ceasefire, isn't that the idea?
No, they're basically saying Israel is okay. Because if Israel wasn't okay, Egypt would be mounting troops right there. America would be cutting back on the money that it was giving.
Yeah. No, Egypt wouldn't be mounting troops because Egypt has reinforced its border and wants absolutely nothing to do with the Palestinians.
Isn't that my point?
Well, OK.
I have no idea anymore.
What is
my point? No, it's my point that Egypt wants nothing to do with the Palestinians.
Yeah, but they still doesn't mean that they don't want peace. They don't want a ceasefire. Is this the time to be asking for a ceasefire? It seems like Hamas, Paul, they're on the ropes. This is exactly where Israel wants them, surely. And it's been shown that there are still hostages that are there. There are over 100 hostages, and that it actually works. And they managed to free a couple the other day.
Well, I think we're hearing a little bit of contrition from Hamas for the first time, certainly for me. So Hamas officials have told reporters they are awaiting the outcome of the Cairo meetings, and Hamas is open to discussing any initiative that achieves an end to aggression and war. And I think that's the first time I've really heard that level of contrition from Hamas. But any ceasefire is only as good as the long-term solution, because a ceasefire will only last and become a solution if the solution stands up to scrutiny. And I think that whatever happens in that meeting, yeah, I'm all for stopping the aggression now, however, because perhaps Israel have made their point. But the only way they can really resolve this issue is to have a resolution that works for everybody, which is likely to be a two-state solution. But we've been here a million times before.
Well, the point
Josh.
is Hamas don't want a two-state solution.
Exactly. Neither does Israel.
They do. They have agreed many times to a two-state solution.
But I think now
the Palestinians haven't.
The Israelis don't want it. The point is, this is a horrible situation because the Gazans, the Palestinians, they're willing to have their houses destroyed for the sake of this war. They're amazing.
Hamas are willing to sacrifice their own population. There are 1 million Palestinians, 1 million Gazans in that city who are vulnerable.
They are. So in their mind, they have no incentive for giving up.
They want to. Well, also, we arguably in the West think of them, or a certain contingent in the West, think of them as freedom fighters. We don't understand. Hamas are Islamists. They're fighting because they believe they're going to go to heaven. They don't care how many people care. They want people to die. They think it's a death cult, and that's what people don't seem to understand.
Didn't I just say that?
You said it, but not in such a beautiful manner. Moving on to Wednesday's Sun, and a woman doesn't blame his tools, Paul, but in this case, he might just have a case.
So, Border Force boat fleet axed from patrolling the Channel for vessels used to service wind farms. So, the huge operation, which we're all aware of, has been left to a fleet of private vessels normally used for servicing wind farms, and the context being that it's costing the taxpayer £36 million a year. So it turns out, and I wasn't aware of this, the Border Force has 5 cutters, which are sort of fast boats, that they use to patrol the waters and help stop the fleets and fleets of small boats coming over from France. But it appears those 5 cutters have literally been overworked, and they're going to replace it with these catamarans that are not so well used, but are used for servicing wind farms. So that's the context of the story. But even further context to that is that there have been 604 small boats incidents in the last year. 544 of them were intercepted by commercial transfer vessels, with the rest being carried out by the RNLI. So Border Force itself isn't actually having to do a tremendous amount of that operational work at sea. Obviously, they do when it gets back to land. So I'm not...
Do they?
Well... That's the question, isn't it? So I think the story here, the why of this story, is do they? What is going on? Why are we spending £36 million more on this problem, and it doesn't seem to be resolving it? It took me a while to come to that conclusion, because I read this story a couple of times and thought, I'm not entirely sure what the story is here. OK, bad boats replaced by good boats.
Well, they haven't. No, that's the point, is that they haven't replaced... They've replaced them with a private force.
Yeah.
So the story here, Lewis, surely is we don't have a border patrol. Britain does not have our own boats on board. Of course, people are going to come over and try and come over on boats if we don't have a national border patrol.
But from what I've read, there are in the previous boats, they were manned by a private crew, but there was a border patrol guy on it, and I think there's going to be a border patrol on it. The news story is £36 million. Is that the government has to pay £36 million to get more and bigger, newer boats to not to patrol it. There's not being patrolled. That's picking the people up. There is no control.
Well, exactly. Yeah. So, arguably, then, Paul, the story is also about how there's just been a total lack of long-term investment in this country, and as usual, we get to a point where it ends up costing us more because someone didn't work all this out 10 years ago.
It's similar to paying
schools,
16,000 apartments, 5 years worth of apartments in one go.
There we go. Mirror now, and I wonder how bosses felt when Rishi said, "Call in the RAF on GB News," Lewis.
Good news. Rishi made RAF fly 200 miles to pick him up from a TV grilling. And I don't know if it was a grilling. I didn't see it. But did it seem like a grilling? I
don't think it was a grilling. I think he just got asked some fair questions and he answered them.
And he answered them. So it wasn't much of a grilling. But it was... And so the RAF flew 200 miles to pick him up at Teesside International Airport in Darlington in an RAF jet. Truth is, I've been to Darlington, and...
you want to get out as quick as possible. You're like, please call the RAF.
That's exactly...
They're lucky they just didn't get bombed as well.
And he wants to be seen as a man. I guess the reason why the Mirror's left, right? So the Mirror's saying, oh, look at him. He thinks he's better than other people. He can't take the train. And
Rishi Sunak always travels by taxpayer-funded transport because he's the Prime Minister. That's the whole point. No, this is a non-story. For me, it's a complete non-story.
Yeah.
It is, because what's he supposed to do? Catch a lift with his mate?
No, it's all right.
Put it out on Facebook, put it into the...
It's one of the perks, isn't it?
It absolutely
It's
should
not like
be.
he has Air Force One.
We want him to be getting from A to B quickly so he can get on with his job. That's the point, I think, and in a safe way. I mean, if we can't protect the Prime Minister... Well, so I would argue the same for, Keir Starmer, or, God forbid, if Jeremy Corbyn had been the Prime Minister. He should have been able to take taxpayer transport wherever he went. You've earned the top role and you should get looked after.
God, don't mention that name to me. But, yes, you want to get there as quick as possible, and fair enough. Right, let's move on to the next one. Wednesday's Times, finally a victory for Russia, Paul.
Seized Russian super yacht, proving too costly for the US to keep. So when Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, the US Department of Justice asked authorities in Fiji to seize the Armada which is a £300 million yacht belonging to Suleiman Karimov. I think that's the right pronunciation. He's a Russian guy, so clearly a baddie. And this thing is costing $600,000 a month to keep. $360,000 of that goes on a crew, $75,000 on fuel, and $165,000 on maintenance and other expenses a month. And the question I have is why? Why seize it? Yeah, why pay it? Why, if you're going to seize it, I understand that, OK, what they were doing is trying to free... This guy has not been harmed by this whatsoever. Someone's taken a yacht off his hands that's cost him £1 million to look after a month, and they're looking after it for him, and I don't understand why they've done that. They would have been better off just letting him keep it.
So do you think that this, then, Lewis, is some sort of dastardly plan from Putin where he's basically tried to bankrupt the West by getting all of these yachts taken on board, and it costs such a fortune?
No, I don't think it is. I think what it is it's America. They just want to stick their little... I don't want to say that, because I love America, but they want to put their little hands into everything and bother everybody and go everywhere around the world, when they should just relax and worry about what's going on in America. I'm an America firster. I'm an isolationist. I mean, yeah, it's the law of unintended consequences. You think you're just protecting the world, and you're just making life harder for yourself.
So never step up, basically. That's
yes.
that's your motto.
You know what? Think twice before you step up.
OK. Paul, do you think, finally, before we move on, that there's any indication that this... sanctions are working of this kind?
No, I don't think sanctions are working. Of course...
I mean, arguably it's pushing Russians into the arms of China, and they may well regret that.
You should ask Louis Schaefer that question.
All right, then, Lewis, let's say.
It is. It's having a tremendous effect on Russia. From what I can tell is, like, a lot of their oil is in the frozen north, and they need to keep on pumping that oil out of the ground, or the thing freezes, and they don't have the institutionalization to fix it, because they've banned Shell and American oil companies from going in there. So if it stops, it's quite possible that they will have no more oil to sell.
Wow.
Even if China wants it, because it'll be frozen in the North Sea. That's just one example.
Well, I can confirm I wouldn't have said that, Josh.
Yeah.
Right, what would you have said?
I would have said that it is not having an effect, because quite clearly it's not having an effect.
It's having an
effect. Because the war's continuing.
Yeah, but I mean that doesn't mean that it's not having an impact.
Yeah,
but... Is it? I mean, we're covering it later, but he's going to send old men to war, so, you know.
Arguably it's having an impact. Well, anyway,
yeah.
We're at the halfway point, and we've got a lot left in the tank, including the winner of the Best Anti-Semitic Comedy Routine, Kids Who Don't Want Kids, and what is cyber flashing. Paul's going to demonstrate in 2 minutes.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Lee Anderson's Real World. Fridays from 7 p.m.
Dr. Jane Jones, who's the clinical lead for Care After Combat.
Yeah.
Jane, thanks for coming. And just tell me a little bit about your organisation. What do you do?
OK, well, thank you for having me here so we can talk about Care After Combat. So we are an organisation, a charity, who work into the prison system, working with military veterans who've somehow got involved with the justice system and...
So there's quite a high population of ex-servicemen and women in our prisons. Why is that, do you think?
So 2014, the government did a review of who was resident in UK prisons, and what they found were that military veterans are the highest occupational group, and this obviously raises some concerns. Yeah. So the government wanted to do something about that, and so they supported Care After Combat initially, just as a scoping exercise, really, to see if there was any way we could help these men and women actually, you know, understand the problems that led to offending behaviour and go on to lead successful lives.
So what sort of offending behaviour are we talking typically for people that's in prison that's actually served in our armed forces?
Primarily, it's violence.
Yeah.
So that is the highest offence that we work with.
Okay.
But of course, the military, as with everybody else, it's the full range of offending behaviour.
OK, so we're in a pub, Jane, Dr. Jane, and I guess for some people, you know, the odd tip of alcohol is good, a bit of fun of a weekend, relax, let your hair down. But for some people, alcohol is not always their best friend, and I guess that plays a part in some of your veterans that end up inside.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, speaking from my own experience, a good 2/3 of the people I work with have some kind of mental health problem or mental health difficulty, struggling to either adapt into civilian life or with some of the traumas they've experienced during service. People might self-medicate with alcohol to manage some of those thoughts and feelings.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. The Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, and let's head straight into Wednesday's Mail for a story about Jews, anti-Semitism and comedy with the woefully out of his depth Lewis Schaefer.
I think I meet three of those occasionally. Anyway, this is Met Police could launch an investigation into Soho Theatre after Jewish audience member was hounded out by... I don't want to read this because we don't know what the truth is, and you're going to tell us what the truth is. I can't be sure about the truth is, but this is somebody that I know. I'm not saying he was a friend of mine, Paul Curry, but I knew him up in Edinburgh at the Edinburgh Festival. He seemed like a lovely guy, and I don't want to judge him because a lot of times what happens in a comedy club is not translatable outside of a comedy club. It could have been totally misunderstood. I myself have done my award-winning Holocaust material, and people have misjudged it.
Mate, I've done Holocaust material,
yes,
and I've had people walk out here.
Yeah.
But, Paul, this isn't about a routine that has gone...
Can I finish my point?
OK, what's your point? You made your point.
No, I didn't make my point.
OK, it's just now, Paul...
I was...
All right. We'll come back. You save that point. We'll come back to you in a second. Paul.
Yes.
The argument here is that this wasn't a comedy routine that went wrong. This was a racist incident. Surely there's a differentiation between the two.
Yes, and if that's proven, then it should be dealt with as such. Now, I, again, have a problem with it. I don't like to see comedians under attack for things they've said on stage. I don't want police to get involved in what comedians do on stage, because lots of things happen on stage in the name of humour that, out of context, in the real world, could be seen as very bad.
Definitely.
So, I just want to say that. There's a certain schadenfreude for me in that it's happened at Soho Theatre because they're supposed to be this bastion of safe space, woke comedy, and I should imagine it's come as quite a shock to them to find out that something like this has happened. I am not surprised it has happened there, but I don't know enough about it. My first reaction to this was, I can imagine this happened. I can imagine this happened given the context of the political landscape at the moment and the type of people...
Can we describe what happened then, please?
So, OK, from my understanding, and I know you probably know a lot better than I do, my understanding is that at the end of his set, there was a standing ovation, and that two of those people at least didn't stand, and when he questioned them why, they said because he'd introduced the Palestinian flag at some point, and then he hounded them out and encouraged the audience to do so, using quite inflammatory...
Well, swearing at them and telling them to F...
So, all I would say is I find it very difficult to criticise a comedian for something that's been on stage without the context.
Absolutely. So, this is just adding a little bit to that, and Lewis... The incident I understand is, yes, he got out a Ukrainian flag, he got out a Palestinian flag, trying to make this, I believe, a crass comparison. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think it's ahistorical nonsense to compare the two in this situation. That's fine, but that's his right as a performer to do that. Of course it is. It's also his right to say to somebody, oh, why didn't you enjoy, why are you not clapping, or why, to get this fake standing ovation for these flags. There's nothing wrong with any of that stuff. The difference is that once this person revealed themselves as, and he didn't get abusive, to my understanding, and this is from multiple witnesses, that there was an Israeli man there and he said, yeah, I just didn't like that bit, that he then, Paul lost it, started swearing at him and ordered him to leave, and as other Jewish people left as well, Paul led basically a sort of mob of people going, ceasefire, get out. Now, that, for me, feels like a hate rally, not a comedy routine.
It does, but it was expressed in a newspaper, in the Daily Mail. So
No, it's been expressed in multiple newspapers, including The Guardian, including elsewhere. And the police have investigated are now looking into it.
We were not there.
Okay.
And it sounds horrendous. It sounds horrific. But how many times?
Okay, no, you're right. All right.
How many times?
Saying that it did happen to what we just talked about.
If it did happen,
what do you think then should be the response?
I'm going to tell you what it was. If it did happen, it was you know. From what I've heard, Paul went to a Palestinian rally.
So what? That's fine.
I mean, this is what happens.
They're idiots, but
you get worked up in the feeling of the moment, and you feel for the Palestinians, and and you go. Then you
start screaming at Jews to get out of your show and swearing at them.
Yes, it's very bad. But the fact is, Josh, you're always acting surprised. People hate Jews.
No, it's not that I'm acting surprised at all.
I was the most.
What's surprised is.
I'm going to tell you what I was most surprised at.
Yeah.
That Paul Curry, who is a very distinctive, unusual act, okay, got 200 people at the theater. And I'm thinking, my God, he's doing so great, you know?
Well, good for him.
Now he's going to have to perform for the same kind of people. The people are going to come and see him just because he's going to have to hire Jews to sit in the audience for him to curse out. And
great, and you're always available.
By the way, if you do want to go to comedy and it not become a hate rally, go to Comedy Unleashed.
There we go. Look, someone wants to get a booking. Paul, the FT has a story that will surely upset a lot of people on Valentine's Day. They might have to go out and actually have a conversation with their partner.
Yeah, I just need to readjust the glasses for this. US and UK gig workers plan Valentine's Day strike over pay. Uber and Deliveroo face industrial action as drivers complain of pay being slashed in push for profit. So this is something that's happening in the good old US of A and the UK. And like all good strikers, they have chosen the busiest possible day of their industry's year to do it. And it seems to me for pretty good reason. I wasn't aware of this. I've not done this as a job, but drivers and couriers use an app called Rodeo to work out how much they're earning whilst they're pedalling around, driving around, however they're delivering. And the data provided by Rodeo shows that, on average, a worker will earn £5.60 per fast food delivery. Now, the argument from the Deliveroos and the Ubers of this world is that would mean that they earn far more than the standard, the minimum wage, which is £10.42, I believe. But that's only if they deliver more than two deliveries within the hour. And what this data doesn't show is how many, on average, deliveries they do within an hour. So it's difficult to get the context of this. However, the complaint isn't really about pay. It's about the conditions of the gig economy. And this one's difficult. But all of us kind of work or have or still do work in the gig economy to some degree. We get paid for what we do, and we don't get paid for what we don't do. And that affords us a level of flexibility that it doesn't afford other people in their lives. You know, we can spend the morning in bed if you haven't got children, if you're not hungover from eating raw steak all day. But at the same time, it also takes away because you don't have all the benefits that you do if you're pay as you earn, an employee of a company.
Yeah. So, Lewis, they just want more money. Doesn't it really come down to that?
Everybody wants more money. But according to this, they're making more money than the living wage, according to Just Eat. They're making more money. I'm not saying they're making enough. It's a horrible job, but there are benefits to it. I speak to the Uber drivers here, and they choose what hours they're working. They choose if they want to work, and they can quit if they want to quit. I mean, obviously you want more, and obviously they want to pay you less because this is how
they want to make money.
It's a business.
Yeah, and everybody's going to get ripped off. Apart from
there is. I mean, by the way,
what about paying Louis Schaefer more money? Why aren't I on strike? I'm going on strike right now.
There are
one day you will be paid money.
Three main companies involved in this: Just Eat, Deliveroo, and Uber. Just Eat and Deliveroo have pre-tax losses.
Yeah, but that's how they fiddle the accounts, isn't it? Right, Wednesday's Express next. And Lewis, I'm confused because I thought you said your girlfriend did want to have children.
Don't make fun. My girlfriend's young. She's not that young. Anyway.
Anymore?
Well, more people start off being young and now they're old. Look at you. I remember when I met you 20 years ago. You were a bright guy. You weren't so nasty.
I remember when I met your girlfriend 20 years ago.
You weren't always cutting me off all the time. You were a bright, happy guy. You were meeting some big shot, Louis Schaefer from New York. Now
I was honoured to meet you.
You have no respect for me.
It's true.
It's totally true. It's totally true. The audience, they love me.
I have respect for you.
Read those
Do the
words.
story. I'll give you respect.
Pressing reasons why UK teenagers say they don't want kids. And the reason they don't want kids is because people are ugly now. They're fat. They've got bad teeth.
It doesn't say anything about that in the story.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But that's my reason. I'll say what their reason is. They think the world is about to end. Why are we going to bring kids into this horrible world? And this is a deliberate attempt by the powers that be, the globalists, the team world people.
Okay.
No, listen. I'm going to.
No, because that's not what the story says.
It does say it.
That's like a side part of the story.
It says no. I'm giving analysis.
What's the main reason it says?
The main reason is they don't want children because the world is so bad.
That's not what it says.
It says it right
Well,
here.
what does it say? What does it say? The surprising
because they're
reason.
put off by a turbulent state of the world, climate change.
No, the reason why they don't want children is because they are scared of childbirth and fears of pregnancy.
That's the women, not the men.
Well, I'm sure men as well have been through it.
To be fair, it didn't look fun.
Yeah.
No, it didn't look fun. Part of the story is that we are not educating our children. We're teaching them about 100 different genders.
Yeah.
We're not teaching them the bare minimum here, which is that childbirth is a pain-free experience.
No. Do you know what? The men, no 18-year-old boy is thinking this is going to be painful. Let's not have kids. I don't want the woman to suffer. No, he's not thinking that. The women are thinking that, and they've got a right to think it. It looks horrible. But the men are thinking, why are we going to bring people into the world? There is no future, and there is no future.
Right. Okay. This is where I divert slightly.
Go.
Okay. Yeah. So the idea that this is a bad place to bring children into, for me, is for the birds. Human civilization is at the most advanced point it has ever been at. Obviously, because we are at that point in time. Medicine, technology, infrastructure has got to the point which enables people to live to an average age in the West of nearly 100 years. So the idea...
Not in Glasgow.
Not in Glasgow. But then, you know, that's something to do with deep-fried heroin or something. But... I just do not get this argument that this is the worst.
First of all,
and by the way, I agree. It's got to be about the childbirth thing, and I'm not surprised. We're just not stoic anymore in the way that we used to be.
You made 2 points, okay?
Did I?
Wow! I can't believe we've had 2 whole points in this section.
The first point is wrong. Is we've hit peak life expectancy. It's falling off a cliff. People are dying like crazy. Steve Wright died. He was 69 years old. That's so young. I'm 66. I could die at any minute. And they see it. And the fact is, these young kids have to take care of all the altercockers with the altercockers, all the old people,
Yiddish.
like myself, whatever. I'm speaking a language. You understand that there's no hope for them. They're not going to get a house. Their house is going to be filled with some immigrant. They're not going to have a good job. And,
if only we'd just get teenagers to watch Lewis's rant, I'm sure the birth rate would go right through the roof. One more station to go, and as usual, we save the most mental stuff to last. We have pensioner soldiers, teachers stealing art, and flat earth dating. See you in 2.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Claire, you want to talk by cars growing by a couple of centimetres a year?
Yeah, well, 1 centimetre every 2 years.
Okay.
It's unrelenting because the people are so fixated on the big SUVs. The sales have gone through the roof, and yet it's James Nix, the analyst for Transport and Environment Campaign, said the author of the report on the trend said, spurred on by sales of the largest SUVs, vehicles are getting wider every year. Now, what does that mean for us? Well, it means that our roads weren't...
Comfortable ride, beautiful engine, smooth. I mean, it's luxury, it's gorgeous.
Well, as I know, I used to have two, but I don't...
You used to have 2 SUVs?
Well, one SUV at a time, but I had 2 brands of them. But I'd no longer drive in London now because I just don't see the point, because of the ULEZ, because of the, you know, you can turn down a thing and get fined.
Parking spaces, whatever.
Yeah, the growth in car size also causes issues for their drivers. The report found that largely luxury SUVs, which are about 2 metres wide, no longer fit in off-street parking.
That's true.
They also leave too little space for passengers to get in and out of the vehicles in typical off-street spaces, and they're about 2.4 metres wide, the report found. And I'll tell you, I was stuck in a bus last night trying to get home, and the buses couldn't move because the streets were too crammed with all of these massive cars either side.
Chelsea tractors.
And it was gridlocked.
Yeah, but maybe they're not the problem, maybe the buses are the problem.
The buses take people to their place of work and get
I'd
them
like
home.
to know when, because when I go through London, all I see is empty buses.
Well, you're lucky. Every time I'm on one, they're full.
Well, they're obviously only full at rush hour. You see, the thing is, property developers, when they do high-rise car parks or, you know, they build a multiplex cinema and there's a car park attached to it, that's not my fault that I can't fit into their space. It's their fault. So
Well, it's all driven by money, isn't it? The more spaces that they have, the more people they can get.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's kick off with Wednesday's star poll. And I thought that all of the Russian elderly men had already drank themselves to death.
You would have thought so, but let's hope they haven't, for Putin's sake. Putin to raise the age of military service to 70 as Dad's army deployed to Ukraine. Don't tell him your name, Pajkovic. But, I mean, this is inevitable, isn't it? I'm starting to...
What, everyone else is dead?
Well, yes. But I'm starting to lose the narrative of this war because there's too many wars going on. So it's like, you know, it's like at the moment it's a bit like watching 3 Netflix series at the same time. You're like, I was really into Ukraine, and then like this brand new Israel thing came out. Started watching that. Now, you know, that's going on a bit. So now I'm back to this, and I'm getting kind of lost. Who's winning? Who's losing? I watched the Putin interview. That was brilliant. But really, are Russia losing? I mean, the idea they're sending 70-year-olds to war would suggest they are.
Well, that's not a good sign, is it? I mean, Lewis, sign of desperation when you start getting the 70-year-olds.
Well, you were the person who always mentioned the pogroms, and which is what has sort of happening lately. This is what happened during the pogroms? Is they would put, my great-grandfather was put on a 25-year military contract. That's why he left from Russia.
Yeah, conscription, yeah, I remember.
Conscription.
Okay. Anyway, that doesn't answer the question.
Russia is not doing well.
Right, The Sun has a story that proves that the police really can't take a joke.
Yeah, well, good news. Top brass launched major inquiry to find culprit who put up joke sign in the police station's toilet. And this sign, it says fancy and new challenge. And it's kind of like an advertisement for the community safety unit at Bethnal Green.
Which deals with
men and women, domestic violence,
and some pretty grim stuff.
And basically, it's saying, do you want to deal with idiot men who can't seem to grow up, who make you want to bring back the death penalty? This is what the police are thinking.
Yeah, it's gallows humour, right?
Yeah. Well, no, it's not gallows humour. It shows that they've got a tremendous hatred for men.
For domestic violence, for people who beat up women, Lewis.
And women, no, that's not the only domestic violence.
Yeah, let's have a picture of the sign.
There's a lot of fact.
Yeah, there it is. I mean, we can't really read it, but I will say it's pretty well written. I mean, surely it shows they've got a sense of humour.
Yeah, do you know what? One thing to take away from this is that at least they have a sense of humour. And you're right
Not
about
the bosses, though. They sealed off the toilets.
Well, I guess they can't, can they? But they made it a crime scene, didn't they? But this isn't about the subject matter. This isn't about the people that they're trying to, the baddies. This is just about having that sense of humour, and you've got to in their job.
There it is. My favourite story of the day in the Telegraph, Paul. It seems like those who can't teach steal.
Yeah, teacher sells students creepy portraits on his own website. So pupils at Canadian schools say Art Tutor is passing off their work as his own and selling it online as prints or coffee mugs and clothing, which, by the way, is exactly what Lewis Schaefer does with his sweatshop in Nottingham.
Yeah.
He has this woman called Lucy, which works for next to nothing.
No, she gets something. She gets something, but we're going to be.
What does she get, Lewis?
She's going to be. She gets. What? Mind your own business.
Love, little kisses.
She is quite happy. She works with.
Now this is a sweatshop. This is a funny story, but surely also, if he's the teacher, surely he gets a bit of credit. Maybe he should be able to sell their art.
Yeah, I don't know. They're 12 to 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
And he shouldn't get any credit whatsoever.
All right, it's no money. All right, finally, The Star has a story about where Lewis meets all his women.
Yeah, it's a flat earth dating site where believers look for love with no room for globies, which I thought was...
yeah, fat people.
I thought they were talking about boobies. But fat people... maybe I mean, to be fair, I've never been on a dating app, but I'm sure there isn't much room for globies, fatties, if that's what they are. But, I mean, what I'm really intrigued to hear is what Lewis Schaefer thinks of this.
Yeah, Lewis, are you a flat earther? This is what the question that people are always texting us.
No.
Now, you're going to get a lot of abuse now from the flat earthers who thought that you were team flat earth.
Do you want to know something? The way things are going, I don't believe anybody about anything. And if someone came to me and said, let me give you a reason why the earth is flat,
you might think about it there. Well, but also, surely you would... I mean, the whole point in relationships is just opposites attract. You don't want someone else who's going to out-crank you.
No, I guess... It's really interesting, isn't it? I mean, I wouldn't want to search for a partner who was exactly like me.
No, well, good luck. Your wife's not watching this. Anyway, the show's nearly over. Let's take another quick look at Wednesday's front pages. We have the Daily Mail, row over Harry's royal website rebrand. Telegraph, Labour faces fresh crisis over anti-Israel remarks. Guardian, Labour in turmoil as party ditches second candidate over Israel views. Express, what on earth is Britain coming to? And the iNews, Starmer fights to limit damage after second candidate rants about Israel. Finally, the Daily Star, BBC DJ legend Steve Wright, dead at 69. That's very sad. Unfortunately, we didn't get to talk about it, but obviously the man was an icon. Those are your front pages. That's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests, Paul Cox and Lewis Schaefer. Simon Evans will be here tomorrow at 11 p.m. with Leo Curtis, Scott Capero. If you're watching at 5 a.m, stay tuned for breakfast.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again, very good evening to you. Alex Burkill here with your latest GB News weather forecast. Yes, across Scotland it is going to be a chilly night with some frost likely, but for most of us it's a cloudy, wet and mild story because of a weather system that pushed its way in earlier today and has already brought a fair amount of rain across many parts of England and Wales, staying cloudy and wet across many parts through the night, and rain also pushing into Northern Ireland too as we go through the early hours of tomorrow morning. However, across much of Scotland, clear skies here, and with that then temperatures taking a bit of a drop, falling a few degrees below freezing, so a fairly harsh frost here, but much milder elsewhere where we have those cloudy skies. As we go through tomorrow itself then, another grey gloomy day for most of us. Further outbreaks of rain could be heavy, could turn persistent for a time in the south, and some persistent rain pushing in then across parts of Scotland with some snow over the highest ground. Greatest chance of seeing any sunshine tomorrow will be in the far north of Scotland, but here's where it's also going to be chilliest. Elsewhere, a pretty mild day with highs of around 14 or 15 Celsius. Mild for most on Thursday, could be even milder than on Wednesday, but again, cloudy with further outbreaks of rain, and these could be pretty heavy at times. Could see some localised impacts. Notice some heavier rain pushing into the south as we go into the afternoon. At the moment, Friday does look like it will be drier with some bright or sunny spells, but then the rain returns in time for Saturday. Bye-bye, I'll see you again soon.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of